Welcome to the Real Life Podcasts with your hosts, leadership and personal growth author and speaker John C. Donahue and licensed psychotherapist Lou Carfisi. The Real Life Podcast is your weekly dose of motivation, encouragement, and direction to help you live your life at the highest level.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Real Life Podcast. My name is John. I come to you from johncdonahue.com. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, one of my best friends, Lou Carfisi from lifecarecounseling.net. Together, we are the Real Life Podcast, and we're going to have a great show for you. We're talking about 6 ways to avoid and recover from being hurt. So, fascinating topic, my friend.
Yes, it is. Everybody gets hurt, right?
Right. Everybody deals with hurt in different ways of being hurt. That's probably a good launch pad for our disclaimer. Go ahead. We're talking about emotional hurts. We're not talking about physical hurts, right?
Right. We're not qualified really to talk about physical hurt, and we can't help you not suffer if you're physically hurt, but we can help you if you're emotionally hurt, and you can stop being emotionally hurt, or at least diminish the amount of hurt you have, and we're going to try to help you to do that.
So the first thing we want to start off with is asking a question. Is it all in your head?
Oh, yeah. It's all in your head.
So
doesn't make it hurt any less, but it's
right.
Still all in your head, right? Because
Right.
where else would it be?
All right. So even though it's in our head, we can get that feeling of, our hearts could hurt. We get blindsided by something. We get that gut punch. So even though it's all in our head, I mean, there's probably times we feel like it's physical, but it really is all up there. So we want to go over real quickly just some of the ways that we get hurt. So how are some ways that we get hurt that we can try to avoid and recover from?
Well, we get hurt. The sources of hurt usually are people, right? I mean, that's usually what hurts us. And one of the items is what people have. They react to us, and they may not react to us the way we want them to react to us.
Right.
Or they may react to us in a hurtful manner. Right.
We all want to be liked. We all want to be accepted. And sometimes those reciprocating emotions don't come back to us that we expect from other people. So we get those reactions, and sometimes we get judgment from people. People judge us for a lot of different reasons. Overweight, underweight, wrong color, wrong size, wrong hair color, wrong clothes. Lots of people judge us for different reasons.
Mm-hmm. And they criticize us. They criticize us all the time. They criticize us, and the reasons behind why they do that is not important right at this moment, but it is a factor here. And We're going to address that a little bit later when we talk about the 6 ways to stop being hurt by people.
Right. And criticism is difficult. And, even when it's from, people that we don't know, but the worst criticism, and I think some of the ones that have scarring capability for a lot of us, are from our families, from our families, from our spouses. Right. We get hurt by those people a lot.
Yeah. How many people have been hurt by their spouse?
Lots. I'm sure that your office is full of people who have probably been hurt by their spouses in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. They're hurt by their spouses because they get cheated on.
Right.
All right.
They get cheated on. They get manipulated. The worst, for me, one of the worst ways that you can erode trust is by realizing that you're being manipulated by your spouse or a family member.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Manipulation.
Right.
Go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
No, it's hard to build that trust back up when you realize that somebody's using you.
Yeah. And trust is the basis for a relationship. Without trust, you have no relationship.
Right.
Mistreated, and it doesn't necessarily mean physically mistreated. We're talking about emotionally mistreated. We actually have a category that says emotional abuse.
Right.
And that's part of manipulation and part of just being disrespected.
Yeah, being disrespected, especially by your spouse. Not only is it really unhealthy and it can be very damaging, it's just another one of those ways that erodes trust, and it can really destroy a relationship. Being disrespected by a family member, if you're a parent and you're disrespected by a family member in front of your kids, just think about what that does, the trickle down effect on what it does to your kids when they see you get disrespected by a family member, or see you get disrespected by your spouse.
Yeah, it has a bad effect all the way around. And, when we get lied to, that's another thing. We get lied to by a spouse or, a significant other, or however we want to put this.
Right.
It hurts a lot more, right? I mean, we take it a lot more personally.
Right. And because it's our spouse, it's our family, it's the inner circle, as close as the inner circle can get. And when you get lied to by somebody in that inner circle, it could just send you into a tailspin. I mean, you don't know where to go to find that trust. You don't know who to believe. And it really does a lot of damage. I mean, some of the biggest hurts are from lies. And unfortunately, it's easy for some people to lie to others.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So how else do we get hurt, John?
Well, we get hurt a lot by others' words. People say things, we talked about criticism. We talked about judgment. Those are usually words. I mean, there's some actions in there too, but we get hurt by people's words. People say horrible things about us, especially like in aspects of our work. Maybe we're not doing a great job. We're not doing the job that they expected of us. Their expectations are maybe too high, or maybe, we're doing something that they dislike. We're not doing everything how they want it done at work. So, people's words at work can cause a lot of damage. And the sad thing is we bring that home, and that just doesn't help us, because it just makes it even worse, because we deal with it at work, and then we deal with it at home.
That's right. So we all have there's potential everywhere,
right,
for getting hurt by these things. How about our appearance? If somebody walks by, she's fat, or he's too fat,
right,
or he must be lazy. Why doesn't he take care of himself? Why doesn't he do this? Why doesn't he do that?
Right.
And those things hurt, because they're personal attacks on someone.
Right. And I'm a big dude, and I've gotten this a lot. I get the looks. And I have people that have made comments about my weight before. And yeah, there's reasons that I'm overweight that are under my control. And there's some that nobody knows that are not my control. But the crazy thing is then I start telling people that I get to know better. I've run several half marathons. You wouldn't know it to look at me, but, I've done things that people half my size wouldn't even think about trying. And the thing about being judged by your appearance, it seems to be just the most petty thing. Too skinny, too fat. You don't have the right clothes on. You just don't look right. And that's just petty to me.
Well, the fact is that people will target people that they deem. We almost turn into predators as people sometimes.
Right.
Because we look for things in people that we can attack. And
right.
How do we attack them? We're not going to physically attack them like with a sword. We're going to attack them with this thing.
Right.
And this thing hurts.
Yeah, absolutely. The mouth, I read a book a long time ago that was fairly popular for a lot of people. And it talks about the mouth being one of the most dangerous things. It's a little tiny piece of our body, but they say like even the rudder on a ship is very tiny, but it can move an entire vessel. Not that I want to go down that road, but the mouth is one of the most dangerous weapons that we wield.
Yes,
and speaking of that, this time of year, dealing with the political aspects of our lives, we get disrespected. We get all sorts of negative words about even things like our political views.
Yeah. And there's the thing. People who disagree with you on a political view, I have an announcement to make, a bulletin. They're not stupid.
Right.
They're not stupid. They believe what they believe for a reason. And it's not up to you or anyone else to tell them they're right or they're wrong.
Right.
And that's the whole basis for political discourse and for being respectful to other people.
Right.
So you may think they're stupid, but they're not.
Right. You said something there that I would love to launch on just a little bit. Discourse. I've caught some heat for some of my political views. I'm sure that you've caught heat for yours. And if you're watching or listening, you've probably said some things in public that people have gotten on to you about. But the thing is, we need to have a discourse. We need to have a conversation. Another way that people's words really try to hurt us is when we have a dissenting opinion. In this day and age with social media, if I have an opinion that's different than yours, whether it's political or, lifestyle, whatever, I don't mind having a conversation about it. But I've seen people on social media just shred other people just because they disagree with them. We used to have conversations. We used to have a discourse, trading of ideas. That to me is one of the saddest statements about our country.
Yeah, it's getting divisive and it's getting very hurtful.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Yeah. So we also get hurt from our circumstances. What are some of the circumstances where we get hurt by?
Well, we mentioned kind of one already. Work. If you're at work and you get laid off or you get fired. I've never been fired, but I have been laid off. And being laid off is, you still, even though it's not necessarily a reflection of your work or you, it's definitely not a reflection of you. It's still, I had a job, I don't have one anymore. So, and most of those things can be turned into good opportunities. But anyway, the circumstances, they may or may not be your fault, but we get hurt by them.
Right. Well, I have been fired from a job or two, and it's not fun because it's really hard to walk away from that and feel positive because, at some level you're dealing with the hurts of you think that you failed or you didn't measure up. So yeah, there's a lot of deep-seated hurts from being fired or even being laid off. How you exit a company is equally, if not more so, important than how you enter a company. And there's a lot of companies that do that part, the exit part, really, really well. There's a lot of companies that really, really stink at it. And unfortunately, those companies that stink at it leave a trail of hurt people in their wake.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. So money problems, right? Money problems cause a lot of hurts.
Yeah, we get hurt because we don't have enough money to buy something that we may or may not need. But this is also wrapped up in judgment because other people will focus on that.
Right.
They'll look at you and they'll say, hey, I don't like it. This guy doesn't just enjoy. He looks like he buys all his clothes at Walmart. He looks like they look like they don't really have a lot of money. And this hurts us because our circumstances are not up to what we would like them to be or other people's expectations of us should be, which they have no business expecting it anyway. But nevertheless, it is one place where we do get hurt. Right.
I did not grow up in a very rich house. We weren't dirt poor, but we did okay. But I know the feeling of not having enough money to buy Christmas gifts or birthday gifts for family members. Now, I'm not a parent, but I could just imagine there's a lot of parents that can't afford to buy their kids the really expensive gifts at their birthdays or at Christmas. So there's got to be a lot of hurts that go along with that. All those feelings of, not being able to provide and all those, things that cause self-esteem issues. I mean, that's another way that money problems can cause hurts.
Yep, they can.
Yeah.
Also, we have an opportunity to do something.
Right.
And we don't do it.
Right.
We don't do it for whatever reason. We get hurt because we didn't take, it's an internal hurt. This is how we hurt ourselves. Say, I could have done this. I could have, should have, would have done it. I didn't do it. So therefore, L on my forehead. And that's not how this works.
Right.
At least that's not how I believe it works.
Right.
There was a reason you didn't take that opportunity, and you thought it was the right thing to do at the time, and it's time to drop it because it's gone.
Right. Now, as a sidebar, what do you say about people who like those deathbed confessions of, I wish I would have taken more chances, or I wish I would have spent more time with my family instead of spending it at work?
There isn't a parent alive who doesn't have those thoughts in their head.
Right.
There is not one alive.
Right.
Because they always feel that they couldn't do enough for their children. Hindsight's 20/20.
Right.
We look back on our lives and we make decisions, and we have to realize that we did what we thought we should do at the time. If it was wrong, well, excuse me.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that I encourage everybody that watches, I do a morning motivator every weekday. I try to put something out every day on like Facebook and Twitter that challenges people to do something positive, because I want everyone that hears me to choose to be awesome. And I say that at the end of a lot of my videos, because I don't want people to have the hurt of, those feelings of feeling like they've not lived up to their greatest potential. And, I don't want anyone to get to the end of their days and say, woulda, shoulda, coulda, or I don't want anyone to have those lost opportunities. So I don't want anyone to have to deal with those hurts, basically, is kind of how I came about that choose to be awesome hashtag.
Yeah. And it's good. It's good. Those are good. I highly recommend them.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say people underestimate us. They underestimate people all the time. And they think that we don't know that they're talking about us, behind our backs, but we kind of know things because things leak out. And that's another area that we didn't really cover, and we don't really have to go into in depth about this. But just know that if you're saying something about someone behind their back, that is probably one of the most despicable things you can do to somebody. I've had it done to me, and I can tell you that I don't like it, and I probably have done it to others, and I am sure that if they knew, they wouldn't like it. It's part of being human. It's a frailty. It's a flaw. We all share it. But I can tell you that if anything hurts, it's that.
Absolutely. So in our effort to try to help people not have to deal with those hurts, to avoid them altogether, or to more quickly recover from those hurts, we've put together 6 bullet items that we want to go over to help you to avoid and recover from those hurts. So the first one is something that I've heard you say so many times, Lou, and I'd love for you to not only to tell everybody what that point is, but to also explain it a little bit.
Well, this is kind of psychological. It is a fact that we're not hurt necessarily by the things or actions and stuff that happens to us, because sticks and stones, it can't really hurt you. We are hurt by what we tell ourselves about what others' actions or words that are sent toward us. What do we think about that? What do we tell ourselves? Do we say, well, maybe that's true? Maybe I am a this or a that. And we think about it, and we think about it, and we continue to think about it until we can make ourselves crazy. And it is probably one of the most unhealthy things that you can do. If someone does something to you, it's bad enough that they did it. Don't let it continue. And that will perpetrate that and make it continue to stay forever.
Right. It's those little voices we talked about so many times before inside our heads. We have to quiet those voices so it doesn't perpetuate the hurt.
Yep.
Right.
Yes, sir.
The next thing is something that we've talked about a lot on several episodes and in several of the blog posts, and you can find those over at reallifepodcast.com, is to not worry about pleasing others. Because the reality is you can't please everybody. You're not responsible for others' feelings. You're not responsible for other people at all. You are the only person that has any control over you, and you can't control other people. So don't worry about pleasing them.
And your parents, they come up first. You're not supposed to worry about how they feel. If you want to be a good son or daughter, make sure that you take care of them. Make sure that you help them with their needs. You don't let them live on the street. You don't let them get sick, if you can help it. But you're not responsible if they're not happy. You can do everything that you can to support them, but at some point in time, you have to cut yourself off from them. And this goes for everybody in your environment. It goes for your friends. It goes for everyone that you know. You're not responsible for their feelings. If they get upset because of whatever happens and they're miserable, then you can console them, but you can't feel responsible for making them feel that way.
The next point we want to give you to help you avoid and recover from being hurt is to go into each relationship with the knowledge that there is always a great potential to be hurt or disappointed. People will disappoint you. People will hurt you. Every relationship has potential for that. And just go into that relationship eyes wide open, and just be ready for whatever happens, and just understand that we're humans, and it's human nature to mess up.
Yeah, it is. And no matter who the person is, whether it be a relationship or a friendship or a work relationship, we expect things from them. We expect things of people. You get married or you have a relationship with someone, and then we expect them to never cheat, to never say anything hurtful. Well, you know what? I don't know about the cheating, but definitely the hurtful things happens all the time, because sometimes we just don't think about the things we say. It's tough to do, to always be on guard to say the right things at all times.
Right. Absolutely. It's hard to always know what to say and what to do. And we've talked about this. We did a show a long time ago talking about how to be a communication rock star. Sometimes, even though just a simple communication is interpreted the wrong way, so you're never 100% sure that the communication that you send is always being received the right way. That's why it's a good idea to always be open and sensitive to other people. But don't.
But this is something that you have to keep in mind to help you. When you go into a relationship, don't set your expectations so high that you're immediately hurt when they're not met.
Right.
Sometimes I have couples sit down with me in counseling and tell them, what did you expect from this person? Did you talk about this in the beginning? Did he tell you that he was going to sit on the couch and play video games all day? So, did he tell you he would get a DUI and he's not going to be able to drive?
Right.
These things happen all the time.
Right. Right. Well, was he a slacker when you dated? Probably going to be a slacker when you're married. Just kidding, by the way. Just kidding. So let's talk about work a little bit. You've got a great insight to work, which is our next thing.
Okay. Things that happen at work are not a reflection of us, because they are not who we are. If you have a solid identity, and I talk about this a lot because it is probably one of the things that is at the core of our problems as people. We don't know who we are, or we change our identity to suit the circumstance. If you're a person who is a loving, caring person, you can't all of a sudden put on the suit of a nasty, rotten person, because it don't fit. It's not going to work for you.
Right.
And it's the same thing if it's reversed. If you're not really a nice guy, you can being nice, you can fake that sincerity all you want,
right.
But it's not going to work. People right. are going to know. Be who you are.
Right.
And if you are who you are, when people throw things at you, they're not going to bother you, because you're going to tell them, or you're going to say to yourself, which is the important thing, what you tell yourself is, that's just not me. I would never do that to somebody, and people will accuse you of things. It's just that this is the world we live in.
Right. Right. Always be who you are. Be true to who you are as a person. That doesn't necessarily mean not to be aware and not to protect yourself. But we talked about this a long time ago. I'm by nature a trusting person, and I would get into situations where I would get hurt at work, but I had to almost put a little bit of a game face on when I go in, and just I'd have to protect myself. But I was always me. I couldn't help it. I can't be somebody else. I don't know how to be somebody else. So that's the important thing. Just realize that it's not a reflection of who you are, but just be you. Work is not always, work. We've talked about work a lot. We probably could talk about it to the end of time and still not even scratch the surface. Another thing that we both have pretty decent experience with is people disagreeing with us, and people disagreeing with each other is human nature. There's probably, I would say, a 50% chance that people are going to disagree with you. So right. Make sure that the expectations you set are based on your own abilities and your actions, and not other people's opinion of you.
That's right. When people come into my office and they tell me I'm a people pleaser, I want to run out the door, because I know what's going to happen is that I'm going to get someone in there that I have to work with who doesn't have any solid knowledge of themselves, doesn't base their opinion of themselves based on who they are. And I keep going back to the identity thing. But if you go into every relationship or every circumstance knowing that there's a 50% chance that somebody's going to agree with you and somebody's going to disagree with you, you won't expect everybody to agree with you. I mean, for you, this is the way it is. I got it. It's cool.
Well,
not the way it happens.
And conversely, you can't go into every situation expecting that people are going to always agree with you. So if you're the type A driven person who thinks that you can just by sheer will carve your way through every situation and people will just acquiesce to your will, you've got to deal with that too. You're probably not going to get hurt necessarily like someone who is more of a people pleaser, but there might come a day where you get to the end and realize I'm making no impact where I'm at. And that could be hurtful. For a type A person, that could have dramatic effects.
Yes, it can.
So
but you do the best you can, right?
Right.
And if you can walk away from a circumstance knowing that you did everything that you could and the best that you could, it was a success.
Right. Absolutely. And the last way that you can avoid being hurt and recover from that more easily is this.
There are many unhealthy people in the world. I hate to break it to you, but there are. And some of us go through periods of time in our lives when we may not be unhealthy, but we may act like we're unhealthy. And when someone hurts you and there are no obvious reasons for the judgment and the junk, the words, actions, attitudes, then the problem more than likely is theirs. And you have to treat them as if you know that they're not healthy and take their negativity with a very, very small grain of salt. Families, I've had people come in and they would tell me these stories about a grandmother who was, just off. And she would do crazy things, yell at everybody, manipulate people, be in the background. It's an Everybody Loves Raymond scenario, with Marie doing all that stuff. The reruns are on Netflix, so we saw it. That type of deal, there's something wrong with that person. So if you expect that person to act healthy and act normal and respond to you in a regular way, you forget it. It's not going to happen. So change how you look at them from being someone who is an equal in terms of health, mental health, to someone who isn't, and someone who you care about and wouldn't want to hurt. So you treat them like you want to help them. That changes them from being a threat to someone who you can actually, I understand. Yeah, she told me this and she told me that, but I understand that's coming from a place of unhealth.
Right. And this also helps you with conflict resolution as well, because you don't know what someone else is going through. You don't know what kind of day they've had. You don't know what their home life is. You don't know what their relationships are causing them to say or do. If someone starts acting radically and you immediately react in a negative way, you may just be adding to their hurt, and you don't want to do that. So if you're in a situation where you're dealing with someone, you're not quite sure, where they're coming from, if you flip how you look at them and realize they may just be having their worst day ever, that will help you to not react in a negative way and cause more hurt. That actually might help you to dissolve any disagreement, to dissolve any stress or animosity or anything that's going on negatively. And that will help you not only to communicate better, but it also might in some way help them in a deeper level. Because if somebody's having a rotten day and they lash out at you and you respond in a caring way and try to assist them in whatever way that you can, that's going to help them have maybe a better day. And that's one step closer to being healthier and happier.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right.
Yep.
So if you have some questions, or maybe you have a comment, or maybe you have a story you'd like to share, we would love to hear from you. And you can send your email to questions@reallifepodcast.com. You can always find us over on Facebook at Real Life Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Real Life Cast. And you can always come to the reallifepodcast.com website. And there you can sign up for our newsletter. You can also reach out to Lou at lifecarecounseling.net. You can find me at johncdonahue.com. And there's links to all of this on the reallifepodcast.com website. And we'd love to see you there. Any last words, my friend?
No, that's it. Just remember, you can't expect everybody to be healthy, and because nobody is going to be healthy 100% of the time.
Right. So do your best to avoid and recover quickly from those hurts, and you'll live a healthier, happier life. So for my good friend Lou, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And just remember, if you're looking for real help, real hope, come to the Real Life Podcast. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Real Life Podcast. Find out more information and sign up for the Real Life Podcast newsletter at reallifepodcast.com. You can also learn more about our hosts, Lou Carfisi at lifecarecounseling.net and John Donahue at johncdonahue.com. And remember, live your life to the fullest. And as always, we want to encourage you to choose to be awesome, because when you choose to be awesome, you will be. Have a great week, everyone.